What if Hearthstone's non-destruction removal effects were in Yu-Gi-Oh? Let's start things off with Infectious Spoiling, a 1-cost, neutral, typeless minion with 1 attack and 2 health. With the effect, after this damages a minion, turn it into an Infectious Spoiling. If I converted this card, I would make it a level 1 Earth attribute plant with 300 attack and 700 defense. With the effect, before damage calculation, when this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that monster face down and then give control of Infectious Spoiling to your opponent. There isn't really an equivalent of transforming a card in Yu-Gi-Oh, with banishing face down being the next best thing, as transforming doesn't trigger destruction effects, meaning it has to banish the card instead, and banishing face down, since there would still be some cards that would benefit from being banished. You have to give up Infectious Spoiling when you activate its effect, as tokens in Yu-Gi-Oh don't have effects, meaning either summon a Spoiling from your deck, since you can't generate cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, or give up this card. And the fact that normally using this card's effect would essentially result in swapping control of this card, as what would normally happen would you crash Spoiling, it dies, and the defending card becomes a Spoiling. It becomes an Earth attribute, as that's the generic attribute for plant monsters. I gave this card 300 attack and 700 defense, as I would value every 500 stat points in Yu-Gi-Oh to be equivalent to 1 stat point in Hearthstone. The next card up is Anar Kronos, a 7-cost legendary paladin dragon with 8 attack and 8 toughness, and the effect Battle Cry. Send all other minions 2 turns into the future. If I convert this card into Yu-Gi-Oh, it may become a level 8 light attribute dragon with 3000 attack and 3000 defense, and the effect, if Anar Kronos is tribute summoned, bash all other monsters face down until your second standby phase. Tribute summoning, meaning sacrificing the appropriate number of monsters on your side of the field in order to summon this card, as monsters level 5 to 6 require 1 sacrifice to be normally summoned, and 2 sacrifices for levels 7 or higher, unless stated otherwise. This card's effect only activates if you tribute summon it, is to balance its powerful non-targeting, non-destruction effect, as even though 2 tributes is a lot to give up, since main negates are monsters, if you manage to summon this card, there won't be much else to contest your 3k beater. Its attack and defense becomes 3000, as even though I said every 500 stat points in Yu-Gi-Oh were equivalent to 1 stat point in Hearthstone, for stat lines past 2000, I would make every 500 stat points to be equivalent to 2 stat points to maintain nominal stat lines of 2500 and 3000. Anar Kronos becomes a level 8, as that's the lowest level this card can be with 3000 attack and defense. It becomes a light attribute monster since it's a paladin card, a class that's all about the light. The next card we will be converting is Potion of Polymorph, a 3-cost mage secret with the effect Secret. After your opponent plays a minion, transform it into a 1/1 sheep. If I convert this card into Yu-Gi-Oh, I would make it a normal trap card with the effect, when your opponent summon a monster, banish it, then special summon 1 sheep token, a level 1 earth beast with 100 attack and 100 defense to your opponent's field. It becomes a trap card, as secrets are spells that you can set on your side of the field to interrupt your opponent on their turn, much like trap cards that must be set on your side of the field for one of either player's turn before activating. The next card up is Shadow Word Steal, a 5-cost dual-class priest rogue shadow spell with the effect, return an enemy minion to your hand. If I convert this card, it may become a quick play spell card with the effect, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls that can be normal summoned or set. Add it to your hand. If the targeted card is in your hand or your opponent's graveyard at the end of the turn, return it to your opponent's hand. A quick play spell is a spell card that can be played anytime during your turn or your opponent's turn, as long as it was set on your side of the field for 1 turn. I limited the types of cards that Shadow Word Steal can target, since this is an extremely powerful effect, as even though it can only target main deck monsters, as many endboard cards cannot be normal summoned or set, reserving this card to only disrupting your opponent's engine pieces. It's still a very powerful effect since you're taking the card and adding it to your hand, not destroying it to trigger floating effects, or even sending it back to the deck to be searched out later. I made this card a quick play spell, as even though you can't use this card during your opponent's turn innately, you wouldn't have any valid targets on your turn. Shadow Word Steal also has the stipulation that you have to give the card back to your opponent, since this card would be a prime going first card, crippling your opponent's key engine pieces and using them for yourself. You still have to give the card back, even if it's in your graveyard, so you can't dodge the effect by discarding or extending with the card. The next card we will be converting is Stylus Dark Moon, a 7-cost legendary neutral typeless minion with 4 attack and 4 health, with the effect choose a direction to rotate all minions. And by rotate, I mean you either take your opponent's leftmost minion and you give them your rightmost minion, rotating the entire board counterclockwise, or you give your opponent your leftmost minion and you take the rightmost minion, rotating the board clockwise. Converting this card into Yugioh, I would make it a level 6 Dark Attribute Warrior with 2000 attack and 2000 defense. With the effect, if Stylus Dark Moon is normal or special summoned, you can target your leftmost monster and your opponent's rightmost monster, or your rightmost monster and your opponent's leftmost monster, your choice if tied. You can switch control of those monsters. I made Stylus effect trigger regardless of how it's summoned, since the removal effect is still card neutral, as you still have to give up a monster to take a monster. That and the fact that you can only target monsters at the edges of your opponent's board, limiting what you can steal. I added the extra line, your choice if tied, as the extra monster zones on the 2nd and 4th columns. There are situations where either player could have 2 left or rightmost monsters at any given time. I made Stylus a level 6, making it require only 1 sacrifice because of its low stats. I made it a warrior, as it's the closest type for a normal human, and it becomes a dark attribute since he owns the Sinister Dark Moon Fair. The last card we will be converting is King Plush, a 9-cost legendary beast hunter card with 6 attack and 6 defense, with the effect Charge. This card can attack the turn it's summoned, and Battle Cry, return all minions with less attack than this card to their owner's decks. If I converted this card into Yugioh, I would make it a level 9 Earth Attribute Dinosaur with 2500 attack and 2500 defense. And the effect, if King Plush is normal or special summoned, each player shuffles all other monsters with less attack than this card into the deck. This card can attack directly, but when it does so using this effect, battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved. Its ability triggers regardless of how it's summoned, as this card also shuffles all of your monsters too. This card can attack directly to imitate Charge, as the main use of that keyword is to go face immediately, although it has to cut its attack in half, as cards that can attack directly generally have 1500 or less attack. It becomes Earth Attribute, as that is the generic attribute for dinosaurs. If there's anything I should have changed, or any ideas on cards I should convert next, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, you should check out this one, where I converted 4 mana 7/7s from Hearthstone into Magic the Gathering.
I'm a god. How can you kill a god? Come, lay down your weapons. It is not too late for...